All right, we're live. It is Sunday. This is version 2 of our Hangout.
Yeah.
Today's prompt is discussing with our group members situations in which we've employed the various sources of power and influence referenced by Hackman and Johnson. We'll be working together to tie those experiences to our role as a leader or as a follower. And again, Sandy volunteered to go first, so go ahead.
Okay. As I mentioned, I work for a utility company with 20,000 plus employees. That would include non-union and union. So I do see all of the five powers within my company. So we have to use the coercive power to have clear expectations and consequences, especially with union employees. Even for reward power, for union employees, it's their salaries increase or their bonuses all have been negotiated. Their job responsibilities, roles are very defined, and they have to stick within what they're expected to do, and they can't do anything outside of their roles as a union employee. Legitimate power, we are regulated entities, so we have to have established roles and responsibilities. Expert powers, we have subject matter experts, we have all level of engineers with specialized skills, and even the administrative staff, I feel like we're knowledgeable of all the internal processes and how to get things done. Referent power, we see some exist in employees who have been there for 15, 20 plus years. So we do know they've established really good working relationships. To me, I think it's also about who you know when you want to get things done in such a large organization as to what you know. And being with the company for 10 years already, I feel like I know who to call if I need a favor, and vice versa. People know I've been there for so many years that if they need a favor, if they need anything, they know who to reach out to, or they reach out to me. The ecological power, we do have executives who have the ability to reorg certain departments, and of course we have to submit that. It has to be approved by the California Public Utility Commissions. And so we did have a recent reorg within our department, and we made the structure a little bit more horizontal, less direct reports, so you can supervise. You have more interaction with each of your employees. So instead of having 50 direct reports, we now narrowed it down to like 8 or 10 the most. So as a follower, as an administrative assistant, I feel like I'm an exemplary follower. I do take initiatives. I do think for myself. And if you were to look at the 4D followership model, I'm more of a disciple follower. I do take care of my staff. If they need anything done, I get it done. And I try to be the person who would share ideas and learn from others, so I could be known as that wealth of knowledge. So that's me.
I can go next. I like what you said a lot about, pretty much coercive power versus reward power. And all of my experiences, pretty much, right now I work for a luxury goods company, but in all of my experiences as a leader or a follower, I honestly think that you need a fair balance of all five types of power to really be a successful leader. Like, the coercive power is good, but you have to, I think, remember and understand the audience you're entertaining and kind of adjust your levels of each power based on the individual. So like, if the right person doesn't respond well to coercive power, then maybe supply them with more reward power, but still kind of feed them that legitimate power so it doesn't get too much, I don't want to say crossing the line, but too personal. But then the referent power is really good, because I think when people look up to you and genuinely admire you, they're more prone to, be more bought into what you have to say, what you want, and then the goals that you're oriented with, not just yourself, but your organization and your team goals too. I think legitimate power, I don't want to say it's like not effective, but I think that as a manager or as a leader, with that higher role, you're automatically given that power. So I feel like utilizing legitimate power as a tool too much is kind of, I don't want to say cheating, but it's kind of like cheating the system to where you're not developing your actual leadership skills. You're kind of leaning on the idea that you're in this role that you're you're granted, and you're what's what I'm looking for, that you deserve these these powers and everything. I think you need to kind of earn them and earn your peers and followers respect before you can be an effective leader. I know me personally, I've worked with a leader who is 100% coercive and 0% everything else. And for me personally, that works a little bit until I start getting frustrated with the person. And because it's a constant, I feel negative reinforcement. And I know me personally, to be successful as a follower, I need that positive reinforcement. I'm not saying every little thing I do, here's a cookie, but when you do something right, or you do something extraordinary, that just a little pat on the back or a good job, just something to keep the person interested and for them to know, hey, I am doing my job right. I am completing objectives and directives according to what my leader wants. I think that's really important. I know also the prompt talked about discussing ways in which cultural difference may influence the way we interact with leaders and employee power. I feel like no matter what type of company you work for, the demographic in your employees and in the kind of area you work in, I feel like definitely puts direction towards where you kind of base your cultural differences and how that influences how you interact with leaders. I know, because I work in fashion and luxury, we look a lot at personal appearance, which I know is so wrong, I feel in so many ways, but then in so many ways it's such a way that we've been conditioned within my organization to kind of look at others. So I feel that's something that if a leader came in and necessarily wasn't the organization's image, would I respect them or would I follow them as much as I would follow somebody else who is in line with the organization's image? And just because someone's personal appearance or something isn't up to what you expect doesn't mean that they're going to be negative or they're going to be a poor leader. I think just giving that opportunity for everyone to prove themselves is really key as well.
I really agree with you that in order to be an effective organization, you do have to use, all powers, and it depends on each situation, each case, and which power to use more of or less of. So. Yeah,
same. Jolene, do you want to go? I have the timer. We've got just over 5 minutes left until we hit 13 minutes. So if you want to go first, that way I can.
Yeah, I can. Yep, sounds great. Cool. So I agree with both of your kind of outtakes. I think when I read over the culture and power, I think the power that I kind of rely on the most is referent power and the reward power. And I think it has to be, the reward power has to be something that is meaningful, because I know the book talked a lot about if it's not meaningful, then it's not impactful for your employees. So just that takes a lot of work on the ground and actually getting to know people and understanding what motivates them. Also the referent power, in order to get things done, I'm not in a direct leadership role, which has really been interesting for me because it's only been 2 years since I haven't been a people manager. So trying to understand how to get things done and building those relationships, but also to being willing to give back, because you can't fully rely on referent power. Otherwise, you kind of burn, it's like money in a piggy bank. You can't spend all the money without contributing to it. And then in terms of, the cultural influences, I think a lot about what I do as a recruiter, and sometimes, and I think, Dominic, you touched on it, we talk a lot about image and the way people look, and I think I have hiring managers that are really guilty of being well, this is what they looked like, and I'm well, do they actually have competency or skills? That's not a competency or skill. Just because someone looks different than you or has a different social background doesn't mean, and I think we're all guilty of doing it. I mean, I think about too, how many times we refer people to come work for our companies. If you actually kept doing that, like even think about executive leadership even in Starbucks. There's like all these 6 degrees of separation of the VPs. They've all worked together in some capacity at some point. So on one hand, is it, are we being diverse in what we're doing? I think it's just something, like the book talks a lot about mindfulness, and I think it takes a lot of extra effort, but if we all think that way, then hopefully we'll be able to avoid those pitfalls of only surrounding ourselves around, the type of people that look like us or talk like us, or have the same background. So
I agree. That also reminded me a little bit about just like bad experiences with leaders, and I think the most dangerous combination, at least from my experience, is a combination of coercive power and legitimate power. So I've been in a situation before. This is about 2 years ago. I was working in Los Angeles doing exactly what I do now, and I had been in the position to take over an area of Santa Monica and Beverly Hills. And my current manager would have been losing me as an asset to his team because I was going to go to a different location. And so he went out of his way to ensure that I did not get approval for the transfer. And he blocked me from being able to be promoted into that region, which was a bad thing for the firm because my success would have brought more income and revenue to the firm if I was in a more productive area, but it would have been bad for this one individual manager because I would have been, losing the revenue to his direct team, even though as a shareholder and as a bigger picture, the firm would have benefited. However, he used coercive power by going to the senior leaders and saying things about it ruining his plan and all these things that he was trying to do in his market, and then he used legitimate power of him being my boss and being able to literally not approve me transferring. So those are 2 combinations I never, ever, ever intend to use. I've kind of mentioned in past posts like my experience or what I do, I guess, with my teams. And so I love to be looked at as possessing expert and referent power because in the location, in the setting that I'm inside a branch, like I said, and I only work in the investment channel, but I work with bankers that do everything, and they're kind of like my referral base for everything I do. And so expert power is really kind of in my hands there because I've been in their shoes before, so I know what they go through. I've kind of like climbed the ladder to my position and just kind of done that route. So when they do look at me as a partner, they know I've been in their place and they know that I'm knowledgeable. And so it really helps because they really value the advice I give. And then referent power is really, it kind of ties together in my belief with my situation. It is expert power because, I don't know if they admire me, but I know they look up to me because they know that I've done really well in their positions because I have track records, and then I do pretty well in the position I'm in now. And so they know that I'm able to kind of get things done, and because of that, they have trust and faith. And so they do, I guess, admire what I say because they know I'm helping them, which is in fact turning and helping me. So that's the timer for 13-minute mark. I'm trying to cancel it, sorry. We can go for another minute and a half. I don't know if anyone wants to touch on anything else. I think how culture can come into play. I think that was awesome that Dominic referenced that. The manager that blocked me from being promoted was not the same culture I am, and he was a different race or ethnicity that maybe values that ranking or legitimate power a little bit more than someone around my culture, but I don't know if I see that too much in the industry that I'm in, as much as I do see expert power and referent power being as beneficial. And so that's just kind of my experience there. Does anyone want to add anything? We've got probably about a minute to fill if we want to.
I do. I don't think I had talked about the cultural differences. And what I've seen in my company is definitely the communication pattern that's different, age difference, cultural background. Just as the admin group, I could tell, for me being Asian, the way my parents brought me up, it's all about work ethics. So when I interview other admins who are younger, I feel like, you guys should work hard. And so I need to balance that.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right.
That's a good point.
I think
all right, guys.
Yeah, we've got 10 seconds left. So great seeing everybody. We'll see each other next week. I'm sure we'll talk soon. Thank you, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you.
Have a good night.